So in this video, we're still talking about sources of market failure. The last few videos we looked at one source of market failure, which was externalities. And in this video, we're going to look at a second source of market failure, which is goods that have no price. These are things like parks, national defense, roads, air or water. Sometimes we call these things non-market goods because there's no market for these things. There's not a market for roads. There's not a market for public parks. The government just creates public parks and you use them, but you typically don't pay a price to use them. And so the typical market mechanisms can't allocate non-market goods since there is no price. So to get into this, I want to introduce a couple terms. One is excludable. So we say a good is excludable if a person can be prevented from using it. The second is what we call a rival good, or we say a good is rival in consumption. And so a good is rival in consumption if one person using that good diminishes another person's use or prevents someone else from using it. So let's look at some examples. All goods can either be classified as being rival or non-rival, and excludable or non-excludable, which gives us 4 categories that every good falls into. So rival excludable goods, think of anything you buy, clothing, books, food. Somewhat of a unique example is a congested toll road. These are all things that are rival, meaning if you're using it, you're diminishing the other person's use of it. If you're wearing clothing, someone else can't wear the clothing. If you're eating some food, someone else can't eat that same food. If you're on a toll road and it's congested, you being on that toll road makes it harder for someone else to use it. They're also excludable, meaning we can keep people from using these. If you have your personal clothing, you can keep from someone else from wearing it. You can keep someone from reading your books or eating your food. And we can keep people from being on a toll road unless they pay the toll. Shorthand for this category is private goods. Non-rival excludable goods. These are going to be, we would describe these as natural monopolies. These are going to be things like cable TV, fire protection, or fire department, or a uncongested toll road. So these are excludable. People can't access cable TV unless they pay for a subscription, but they're non-rival. If you're watching a TV show, you're not preventing anyone else from also watching that TV show. If a toll road's uncongested, it's excludable. We can keep people from getting on the road by charging a toll, but as long as it's not congested, you driving on the road isn't preventing someone else from driving on the road. So now let's look at rival non-excludable goods. These are what we call common resources. So these are things like fish in the ocean. That's a classic example of a common pool resource. The environment in general, and a congested non-toll road. So goods in this category, they're rival. If you use them, someone else can't use them. So if you catch a fish in the ocean, someone else can't catch that same fish, but they're not excludable. You can't keep someone from going out in the ocean and catching fish. For the non-toll road, it's rival. If you're on the road, you're diminishing the amount of space for someone else to be on the road if it's congested, but it's non-excludable because it's not a toll road. Anyone can enter the road. And then finally, non-rival, non-excludable goods are what we call public goods. These are going to be things like national defense, uncongested, non-toll road. So national defense is non-rival. Me being defended from, let's say, foreign invaders doesn't prevent other people in America from being defended. As long as you're in America, you're being protected. And it's not excludable. As long as you're in America, you're going to benefit from our national defense system. The uncongested non-toll road is non-rival. It's uncongested, so as long as there's plenty of room, me driving on the road doesn't prevent someone else from driving on the road. and it's non-excludable because it's a non-toll road. We have no way of keeping people off of it. So the non-excludable goods, these lower two quadrants, these are what we're concerned about and what we suspect will lead to market failures. These are all non-market goods or goods without a price. So the problem is, for non-market goods, the true cost of consumption of that good is not being internalized by the user or the consumer. So for example, if you litter, it hurts the environment, and that has this grand societal cost, but the personal cost to you is not that big. So that's what we mean by that. You're not internalizing the full burden to society of your litter. And so if you haven't figured this out already, private decisions about consumption will lead to an inefficient outcome, usually if the good is a non-market good, which means we need to explore public policy solutions to correct that issue. So policy solutions are going to be similar to those used to correct an externality. So some options are, we could regulate the use of the resource. We just pass rules about how the resource can be consumed or used. Hunting and fishing licenses are kind of an example of this. If you want to hunt white-tailed deer, you can't just go out in the woods and start shooting them. There's a specified hunting season, and you have a certain number of tags each year, and that keeps the population at a healthy level. Another solution might be to impose a corrective tax like we saw before. An example of this might be an entrance fee for a national park. So if there are too many people coming into a national park and damaging the property or disrupting the ecosystem, then we can place an entrance fee, which people pay, which makes up for the damage that they're doing to the park. Another option is to auction off permits, and the permits allow use of the resource. So an example of this is FCC spectrum auctions, and you might not have any idea what I'm talking about here, but the Federal Communications Commission regulates the use of the electromagnetic spectrum. So there's a limited amount of frequencies that you can transmit radio or TV signals through. And so the FCC regulates that and auctions off those frequencies. So if you want to take control of a radio frequency, you can bid for it and gain the right to use that resource. And finally, an interesting option is to convert public goods to a private good. So for example, land, public land. So if there's a public land that is being overused or having resources over extracted from it, if you convert it to private land by selling it to an individual, then they'll manage those resources. So imagine we take some national forest and sell it off to individuals. Well, once the individual owns it, they're not going to let you come on their land and just start hunting animals or cutting down timber. So that's an option that does work sometimes. So that's all we're really going to do for public goods. I just want you to be familiar with the issue and know that these market failures do happen, and that in that case, public policy can be used to correct those issues.